Welcome back to City Chats. I'm Joyce Dooley, Senior Research Analyst with Zpryme, and today we have a fabulous guest, Ashley Van Stone with the City of Orlando as part of our second City of Orlando series, and we're going to be talking about energy justice today. So this is a follow-up to Mike Hess's interview, and we're going to be talking about the great energy transition and how cities are called upon to overcome historical inequities and a whole bunch of other things. But before we do any of that, Ashley, I would absolutely love it if you could please tell us, what makes you so passionate about smart cities?
Absolutely, Joyce, and thank you for the opportunity to participate today. Quite simply from my end, it just makes sense. I like things that make sense. And so smart cities, I think, really take that approach of focusing on the effectiveness of programs and services for all. So it embeds that aspect of sustainability, it embeds equity into the process, and then marries that with innovation and technology. So how can we do things in the best way possible so that our residents and communities can thrive in a lot of different dimensions? I think it's more overtly human-centered in a way that not that sustainability isn't, but maybe has had a harder time conveying. And so it's been really great to build the relationship and partnership with our Future Ready team here at the city and really be able to work hand in hand on a lot of critical initiatives that are affecting our community members today and can better position us to serve them better over the long run.
That's amazing. Thank you. And it's very inspiring to have people like yourself working on these kinds of projects. And it sounds like you're in the right place, which is awesome. So the Office of Sustainability, sustainability is one of those terms that it's just could be applied in so many different ways. So could you give us some examples of some of the projects that the Office of Sustainability at Orlando is doing right now so we have a better understanding of what that means?
Absolutely. We're very fortunate here in the city that our mayor is super supportive of sustainability in all aspects. So in 2007 is when he founded our GreenWorks initiative. And so that was really kind of the rallying cry for departments citywide to consider how can we make sure that our city is the most environmentally friendly, economically vibrant, and resilient community that it can be. And so we have a few different key focus areas that we funnel kind of our goals and efforts through. My particular focus areas are in the clean energy, green building, and transportation dimensions. And so two of the really exciting initiatives that have a lot of intersection with our smart cities and future ready efforts is our focus on residential energy efficiency, where we just recently launched an energy burden task force, and then our mobility efforts. So both increasing access and affordability and options for moving our residents around town and tourists, which is also a big piece of the population here year over year. And a lot of that then also focusing on transportation electrification. So how can we get people out of cars? How can we move them around more economically and more effectively and more cleanly throughout the city of Orlando and neighboring region? On the energy burden front, this has been a really exciting development. While it is a tremendous issue that has a lot of different factors kind of affecting the scope of it, the ways we might strategically approach it, the city kind of looking to that lens and residential efficiency as being so critical to how we're going to meet our sustainability goals, it is a tremendous step forward and kind of really reframing it to be people-centered. That whatever solutions that we explore and want to scale or implement are really thinking about how do we bring the biggest relief and benefit to our residents, especially those who are most vulnerable. And that, reduce the emissions that will reduce in the process, the environmental benefits that we'll get from making homes more energy efficient is almost like the bonus, but really it's how can we think about this issue holistically throughout our community and develop some really targeted interventions that are going to accelerate efficiency delivery rapidly.
Amazing. I mean, that just sounds to me like you guys are busy. That's what that sounds like. But that's really excellent.
It's the succinct way to say
Yeah.
it.
But that's awesome, and I love the lens of, really trying to meet people where they're at, trying to serve the community that you have, because every city is different. So it's not like you can take what works in the city of Orlando and necessarily go to deployed in Des Moines, Iowa, right? Like there's just so many different moving pieces to all of this. And it's great that you guys are laying the foundation for, really awesome change in your community and like how to build that future ready city through equity and inclusion and accessibility. So to kind of shift gears a little bit, right, because we're here to talk about energy justice, what is energy justice, and what are some of the challenges that you see associated with it?
Implementation is always the key piece of that, and authenticity. So I think conceptually we can explore things like energy justice and work to define what it means and what our desired outcomes are. But we first and foremost should make sure that whatever that definition looks like and whatever shape that approach takes is driven by the lived experience of our residents. And that is how I think we can most effectively drive a transition that is just, that is truly bringing access and affordability and reducing the negative impacts of the currently, disproportionate energy system that we see, and bring it into something that is much more equitable across the board. Sometimes the phrasing first and worst is used to talk about communities who feel the negative ramifications of whether it's disinvestment or just the cumulative impacts to climate and environment that are being generated by a community, but the resulting consequences are maybe more concentrated in certain areas over others. And that they're feeling them most immediately and most acutely. So they're feeling them the worst, they're feeling them right now, and that's just kind of growing over time. And so to your point, we have great relationships with a lot of cities across the country, and it's a really just kind of collaborative network to share best practices and ideas and troubleshoot. But you're exactly right that every community is going to need its own nuanced approach. And so here in Florida, it comes probably as no surprise that it's rather hot a lot of the year, and that we're seeing that increase, the frequency of those extreme heat days, the extremity of the heat on those days. And so this really becomes not just a justice and an equity issue, but a public health issue when we think about reliable access to energy that is affordable for all. So we're really trying to confront that as a city, and take new approaches to how we can gather that lived experience input to inform and co-design policies and program solutions, and making sure that even the process itself is inclusive and equitable. So considering best practices like compensating community members for their time and expertise, thinking about how we engage, the mediums, the methodologies, the times of day, the places, and accessibility of those spaces. So it's new territory for us. That's exciting, and we've learned a lot. We still have much to learn, and it'll just continue to be that hopefully growing collaborative partnership and process to really redefine and redesign what the energy landscape looks like here.
Yeah, so what are some of the initial successes that you've seen so far as a result of these efforts? Because it sounds like, you've really put a lot of, the city of Orlando has put a lot of intention behind how they want to approach energy justice within their communities. So, what does success look like, and have you achieved some of it?
We're definitely in kind of earlier stages of a lot of implementation. There are certainly some existing programs and resources that are out there, but a lot of opportunity to scale those and make sure that they are reaching those community members who are most vulnerable and most in need of those types of resources and support. But the launch of this Energy Burden Task Force is a really exciting milestone. This was a direct result of this recent community engagement partnership that we embarked on last year with a handful of community-based organizations here in the city. And throughout, a couple months, which their engagement strategy varied as COVID continued to vary and keep us all on our toes. But they were able to gather a lot of great insight from residents, primarily in our Latinx and Black communities, and really capture what are the challenges that they're facing and why, and what do they see as their most immediate and urgent needs, and what are their ideas about how we can help deliver the solutions that they need, and what are their concerns about what that process will look like. And so these organizations then kind of curated these findings and their recommendations into a presentation that they shared with our mayor, and with our leadership here at the city, and just kind of really brought those perspectives to light, in a much more direct and lucid way. And one of the recommendations was to keep the focus on energy burden. That obviously emissions and climate change and all that's embedded in that word sustainability that we started with at the top of our discussion, remains central and important. But when we think about it through the lens of energy burden, it keeps our eyes in focus on, how this is affecting our residents right now, and then how anything that we might implement and design and consider for strategies to address it will, what are the different implications of that on our residents directly. So we got that kicked off earlier this month. Really excited to see where that's going to take us over the next few months. It was a great kickoff meeting, with a variety of representatives from city departments who are participating. And I think it will just really be a new way to kind of bring, economic development, planning, housing and community development, partners within the city that are working on this in some level, maybe more or less overtly, but bringing them together into this, targeted cohort to really think about the strongest solutions that we should be considering and implementing here at the city.
Man, that's excellent. And I think it's going to be really inspiring for other cities to listen in on this and understand, like, how you guys have approached it, so that they could maybe model a similar kind of task force to go out and take care of this, because this is affecting everyone. This will affect everyone. Maybe, matters of scale being, the part of the conversation, but on some level, we're all going to be impacted in this way. And so it's really nice to see such a well thought out, like measurable, sort of achievable plan being put into place for how it to address these issues. So I have one last question for you. And it's, if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing, within energy equity, what would it be and why?
That's a great question. Housing retrofits sounds like a really simple and fundamental thing. And in a lot of ways, it is conceptually. But the implementation of it is harder. Finding the funding, finding the partners, how we're connecting with the residents and the homeowners, the landlords, the tenants that need these improvements made to their home. Even diagnosing what those needs are and then systematically addressing them. There are a lot of steps to the process. And so, man, if I could just wave that wand and retrofit all the homes and buildings in our community that need it, everything from the building envelope to make them more resilient to storms, to extreme heat, and then all the appliances and electrical systems that are out of date and could be much more efficient, which will drive better health outcomes, better comfort and quality of life. That would be amazing, because efficiency first is really critical. The way that we will meet our goals for 100% renewable energy by 2050 is by starting with efficiency. We need to use less, and what we are using, use as effectively as possible. And then once we reach that point, power it with the bountiful sun that we're fortunate to have here in the Sunshine State. So would love if I could just swish and flick.
Yeah, that would be amazing. The city of San Antonio is one of the oldest cities in America, having been founded as a mission outpost 300 years ago. And so we have a lot of historical buildings. We have a lot of older homes. We have a lot of things that need that same sort of treatment. So if you did come across a magic wand, you could flick it down in Florida, but could you also flick it this way? So that way we could resolve some of
I'll
these
do a very, very
lines
wide.
sweeping. Yes. If we have the power, let's use it wisely and judiciously everywhere. So thank you so much for your time today, Ashley. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I'm excited about the release of the videos with Mike Hess and yourself. With that, everybody, please tune into the next episode of City Chats, and you all have a great day.